In the sprawling expanse of the galactic trade hub, nestled on the edge of the Andromeda system, a crowd of various species from across the stars gathered, their voices melding into a cacophony of alien languages and buzzing communications. The hub, a massive structure floating in space, was notorious for its auctions, where anything from rare minerals to sentient beings could be bought and sold. Among the attendees was Alara, a young alien girl with shimmering blue skin and eyes that reflected the cosmos. Her slender form was draped in a tattered garment that did little to conceal her nervous shivers. Her father, a gaunt figure with greed etched deep into his worn features, led her through the crowd, his grip tight on her arm. Despite her ethereal appearance, there was a palpable sadness in her gaze, a silent plea for mercy in an unforgiving universe. "Step up, see the exotic beauty from Thalassa," shouted the auctioneer, a rotund creature with multiple eyes that gleamed with cunning. "Rare as the stars themselves, this specimen is perfect for any collector or connoisseur of unique companions." Alara's father pushed her onto the stage. The bright lights blinded her, and the sea of faces, none bearing any semblance of sympathy, made her heart sink further. She felt like a specimen under a microscope, her fate hanging on the whims of the highest bidder. From the back of the room a human stood, his posture rigid against the chaos of the auction. Jameson, a former military officer turned rogue trader, had seen many things in his travels, but something about Alara's plight struck a chord within him. His jaw set firmly, he moved closer to the stage, his eyes never leaving Alara. As the bidding war ensued, Alara's father rubbed his hands together, eyes alight with the prospect of a hefty payment. Prices soared as beings from different galaxies bid fervently. Alara felt each bid like a weight upon her chest, each call a chain binding her to a life she never chose. "Sold, to the gentleman in the back," the auctioneer finally exclaimed, slamming down his gavel. Alara's heart leapt into her throat as she tried to see her buyer through the blinding lights. Jameson approached the stage, his face an unreadable mask. He handed over a digital token, the transaction as emotionless as the space around them. But as he took Alara's hand to lead her away, his grip was gentle, a stark contrast to her father's. "You don't have to fear me," Jameson whispered as they walked through the crowded aisles, away from the noise and the glaring lights. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to get you out of here." Alara, still reeling from the whirlwind of events, found herself clinging to his words like a lifeline. They exited the hub and entered Jameson's ship, a sleek vessel named the Nomad. As the doors hissed shut, sealing them away from the auction and her past, Alara dared to feel a sliver of hope. Jameson showed her around the ship, explaining its workings with a patience she hadn't expected. "This is now your home as much as it is mine," he said, his voice firm yet kind. As the ship pulled away from the galactic trade hub, Alara watched the stars begin to streak by, the weight of her chains feeling just a bit lighter. Jameson, who now stood beside her, watching the same stars, seemed to be contemplating a future where freedom was possible, not just for the ship, but for the girl whose life he had just altered forever. As the Nomad carved its path through the velvet darkness of space, Alara slowly adapted to her new environment. The ship, compact yet efficiently arranged, contained a small hydroponics bay where Jameson grew various plants, not only for sustenance but also to trade at ports. Alara found solace among the greenery, the plants a stark contrast to the cold metal that otherwise characterized the ship. Jameson, meanwhile, dedicated himself to teaching Alara about navigation and the basics of spacecraft maintenance. Despite his gruff exterior, he was a patient instructor, and Alara, with her quick mind, absorbed the knowledge eagerly. As they traveled from one star system to another, their relationship shifted from rescuer and rescued to something more akin to partners. During their travels, they stopped at a small outlying station on the fringes of the Orion Nebula. The station was a bustling marketplace, filled with traders and travelers from across the galaxy. Jameson was there to trade some of the rare herbs he had cultivated, but for Alara, it was an opportunity to experience the galaxy on her terms for the first time. As they maneuvered through crowded walkways, Alara's attention was drawn to a stall displaying exquisite jewelry made from meteorite iron and nebula stones. The vendor, noticing her interest, began explaining each piece's origin. Jameson watched as Alara listened, seeing her not as the frightened girl he had bought at an auction, but as a curious soul, hungry for the wonders of the universe. Suddenly, a commotion broke out at the far end of the station. A group of rough-looking individuals were harassing a lone trader, their voices loud and menacing. Without thinking, Alara moved towards the disturbance, Jameson a step behind her. "What's going on here?" Jameson demanded as they reached the scuffle. One of the aggressors turned to face him, sneering. "This doesn't concern you, Spacer. Walk away." But Alara stepped forward, her voice steady. "Leave him alone. There's no need for violence." The men laughed, the sound harsh and jarring. But something in Alara's stance, perhaps the unexpected confidence of someone who had been bought as a slave not so long ago, made them reconsider. They muttered under their breath and dispersed, leaving the trader to gather his scattered goods. "Thank you," the trader murmured, his eyes wide with gratitude. "I didn't expect anyone to help." Jameson clapped him on the shoulder. "Just keep your head down and be careful," he advised before turning to Alara. "And you, that was risky but well handled." Alara smiled, a small, proud spark in her eyes. "I learned from the best." As they returned to their ship, laden with supplies and a few new artifacts, the incident at the station seemed to solidify something between them, a mutual respect that transcended their initial circumstances. Back aboard the Nomad as they set their course for the next destination, Jameson looked over at Alara. "You're not the same girl I took from that auction," he observed quietly. "No," Alara agreed, her gaze fixed on the starlit expanse before them. "I'm not. And I never will be again." The Nomad glided through a sector known for its unstable wormholes and unpredictable space currents. Jameson had chosen this route for its relative obscurity, aiming to avoid the usual pirate-laden lanes. Alara, now more familiar with the ship's systems, monitored the navigation panel, her fingers deftly adjusting the controls to stabilize their course. "Looks like we've got a minor fluctuation in the starboard engine's output," she noted, her voice calm and focused. Jameson peered over the readings. "Good catch, I'll take a look at it. Keep an eye on those wormhole indicators. They can spike without warning around here." As Jameson disappeared into the engine bay, Alara's attention was caught by an anomaly on the radar, a faint, irregular blip moving at high velocity. It wasn't like any ship or natural object she had learned about. Her brow furrowed, she adjusted the sensors to get a clearer reading, but the blip vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared. "Jameson, did you see this?" she called out. Back with a grease smudge on his cheek, he studied the radar. "Might have been a ghost signal, but keep monitoring it. Anomalies in this sector can be anything from lost ships to rogue asteroids." Their conversation was cut short by a sudden lurch of the ship. The entire vessel shook violently, throwing both of them off balance. Alara gripped the console, her eyes wide as alarms began to blare. "We're being pulled into a wormhole!" she shouted over the din. Jameson scrambled to the controls, his hands flying over the dashboard, trying to regain control of the ship. "Hold on, I'm going to try to ride it out." The view outside the viewport twisted bizarrely, as reality itself seemed to warp and stretch. Colors bled into one another, stars streaking into long lines of light. The strain on the ship was immense, the hull groaning under the stress. Through the chaos, Alara managed to recalibrate the thrusters to work with the wormhole's pull, rather than against it. "I've aligned us with the flow. It might give us a chance." With her adjustments, the ship began to stabilize slightly, still caught in the wormhole's grip, but no longer buffeted as violently. Jameson glanced at Alara, nodding in approval. Together, they watched as the wormhole's exit came into view, a swirling portal of light that promised escape or perhaps oblivion. They emerged on the other side, the ship tumbling out into unknown space. Systems flickered as they rebooted, the Nomad drifting momentarily as it regained its bearings. Jameson and Alara exhaled in unison, relief washing over them as they realized they were still alive, still intact. "Where are we?" Alara asked, scanning the star charts, but nothing matched their location. Jameson took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the unfamiliar star patterns. Somewhere uncharted. We'll need to figure out our position and find a way back to known space. Alara nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. This detour, while dangerous, had thrust them into a part of the universe untouched by any mapmaker. Well, looks like we've got some exploring to do. They set to work, piecing together their location from celestial observations and scant data. As they plotted their unexpected detour, the mystery of where they were and what they might discover filled them with a renewed sense of purpose. The universe, vast and full of secrets, awaited them, and together they were ready to face whatever challenges it might throw their way. Navigating the uncharted sector, Jameson and Alara discovered that the stars around them didn't correspond to any known configurations. It was as if they had stumbled into a completely isolated pocket of the galaxy, untouched and unseen by any explorer before them. "We should record everything," Alara suggested, her voice tinged with excitement. "Every star, every anomaly, it's all data that could be invaluable." Jameson nodded, equally intrigued by their accidental discovery. "We might have enough here to write a whole new star chart. Who knows, they might even name a star or two after us." As they charted their surroundings, they encountered a planet that appeared hospitable from orbit. Its atmosphere was rich in oxygen, and scans indicated plentiful water and vegetation. Curiosity piqued, they decided to land and investigate further, hoping to gather samples and perhaps even find resources that would help in their journey back to familiar space. The planet was a vibrant tapestry of biomes, ranging from dense, lush forests to sprawling deserts and deep oceans. The first steps on the alien soil were cautious, but the environment proved to be benign. Alara collected samples of the flora, while Jameson documented the geographical features. Their exploration led them to a startling discovery: ruins that suggested a once thriving civilization. Structures partially reclaimed by nature hinted at a sophisticated society that had mysteriously vanished. The architecture was unlike anything recorded in galactic archives, its designs both alien and hauntingly beautiful. "This could be a major find," Jameson mused, examining a device that seemed to have once been a source of power or information. "But it raises so many questions. Who were they? What happened here?" Alara was examining a series of carvings that depicted the celestial arrangement and various life forms. "Maybe they left because of a natural disaster, or perhaps they reached a point where they could move on to another dimension or space," she speculated, her mind racing with possibilities. They set up temporary research stations, using the Nomads' advanced labs to analyze everything they gathered. Days turned into weeks as they delved deeper into the mysteries of the planet. One evening, as they sat outside their makeshift camp watching the twin suns set, a soft hum began to resonate through the ground. Startled, they stood, searching for the source. The hum grew louder, more insistent. Following the sound, they came upon a hidden underground facility at the edge of the ruins. The door, sealed and seemingly impenetrable, responded to the presence of a device they had found among the ruins. With a hiss and a groan, the door slid open, revealing a chamber lined with crystals that pulsed with light. Inside, they found a series of holographic records, a library of sorts, waiting like a time capsule to be discovered. The records told stories of the civilization, their achievements, their art, their sciences, and finally, their decision to leave the planet in search of a new home due to a dying star. Armed with this new knowledge, Alara and Jameson felt a profound connection to this lost civilization. They weren't just explorers or survivors. They were now guardians of a forgotten history, tasked with carrying the legacy of a vanished world. As they returned to their ship, their path illuminated by the light of the crystals, they knew their mission had grown beyond simple survival. They were the link between this lost world and the rest of the universe, a responsibility they accepted with awe and determination. With the revelations from the underground facility fresh in their minds, Jameson and Alara began the meticulous process of translating and cataloging the holographic records. Each fragment of data provided a deeper understanding of the civilization that had once thrived on the planet, which they began to refer to as Arcadia, after the utopian harmony suggested by its ruins and records. As they worked, They discovered that the Arcadians had been pioneers in energy manipulation and quantum theory, their technology based on principles that were revolutionary, even by the standards of the galaxy's most advanced species. Among the records was a schematic for a device the Arcadians had used to stabilize their star, at least temporarily. Jameson, ever the engineer, was fascinated and proposed they attempt to reconstruct the device. It could be more than just a historical artifact, he argued. If we can understand how it works, maybe we can find a way to use it to get back to known space, or, even better, to harness energy in ways we've never imagined. Elara agreed, and they set up a workshop within the ruins to start their project. The work was challenging, requiring them to synthesize ancient technology with the modern systems available on the Nomad. As they progressed, Elara felt a deepening connection to the Arcadians, her respect for their achievements growing with every circuit they managed to replicate, and every theory they proved correct. Their breakthrough came when they successfully activated a prototype of the device. It emitted a low harmonic frequency and created a small, stable energy field that could manipulate gravitational forces. This field could, they theorized, be the key to creating stable wormholes, potentially revolutionizing space travel. Excited by their success, they planned a test to see if they could use the device to open a controlled wormhole back to familiar space. They set up the experiment on a barren plateau, away from the ruins to avoid any unintended damage to the site. As the device powered up, its core glowing with pulsing energy, they monitored the readings closely, ready to shut it down at the slightest sign of instability. The air around the device shimmered, and then, with a brilliant flash of light, a wormhole opened. The edges of the wormhole stabilized, and the sensors confirmed it was stable and matched the coordinates they had set for their return. Before they could celebrate, however, their sensors detected an incoming ship. It was a scout vessel, sleek and obviously military, from one of the known galactic factions. The ship hailed them, and a voice crackled through the comm system. "This is Commander Ryland of the Galactic Unity. We've detected an unauthorized wormhole opening in this sector. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Jameson responded, explaining their situation and the accidental discovery of the wormhole technology. Commander Ryland was skeptical, but intrigued, especially when Jameson mentioned the Arcadian technology. "We'll need to inspect your operation and secure all related technology," Ryland stated, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. "Unauthorized wormhole technology poses a significant risk to galactic stability." As the Unity's troops landed and approached their camp, Elara and Jameson realized that their discovery had implications far beyond their initial excitement. They were now at a crossroads, with the potential to affect the political and technological fabric of the galaxy. As the troops neared, Jameson squeezed Elara's shoulder, a silent promise that no matter what came next, they would face it together, as partners bonded by the stars and the secrets they had unearthed. The arrival of Commander Ryland and his troops marked a turning point for Elara and Jameson. As the Galactic Unity's forces set up a perimeter around the plateau, their expressions were a mix of wariness and wonder at the technology displayed before them. Ryland himself stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the device that had opened the wormhole. "This is impressive work," Ryland admitted after a preliminary inspection. "But you must understand the gravity of what you've done. Wormhole technology is strictly regulated to prevent exactly this kind of scenario." Jameson, standing firm, responded, "We understand the risks, Commander, but our intentions were never to disrupt the galaxy. We stumbled upon this by accident, driven by a desire to survive and return home. This technology could help many if properly managed." Elara added, "The civilization that developed this, the Arcadians, they were advanced beyond our comprehension. What we've learned could benefit all, not just in travel but in energy, medicine, and more." Ryland listened intently, his expression softening. "I believe you. However, my orders were clear. This site is to be secured, and all artifacts and technology are to be cataloged and analyzed by Unity scientists." The tension that had been building seemed to pause, hanging in the air as Ryland considered his next words carefully. "However, given your unique situation and the role you've played in uncovering this site, I'm inclined to offer you a choice." He paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. You can work with us. Join the Unity's research team. Your expertise could be invaluable, and it would also ensure that you have a say in how this technology is developed and used. Jameson and Alara exchanged a glance, a silent conversation passing between them. This was not the freedom they had envisioned, but it was a way to stay connected to their discovery and potentially guide its use for the better. We accept, Jameson said finally, on the condition that we are partners in this endeavor, not just subjects of your oversight. Rylan nodded, a hint of respect in his eyes. Agreed. Partners then. As the Unity's team moved in to secure the site, Alara and Jameson began the process of transferring their data and findings to the Unity database. It was meticulous work, cataloging everything they had discovered about the Arcadian civilization and their technologies. In the following weeks, they worked closely with the Unity's researchers, their days filled with collaboration and discovery. Alara found herself growing into her new role, her knowledge of Arcadian technology deepening as she worked alongside experts in various fields. Meanwhile, Jameson took charge of the practical applications of their findings, spearheading projects that integrated Arcadian technology with existing systems. His work promised to revolutionize aspects of space travel and energy production. One evening, as they watched another sunset on Arcadia, now bustling with activity as a new Unity research outpost, Alara leaned against Jameson. Do you ever think about how all this started? She mused. Every day, Jameson replied. It was an accident, a fluke, but it brought us here to this moment, where we can actually make a difference. Alara smiled, her eyes reflecting the twin suns. Then let's make sure it counts, for the Arcadians, for us, and for the galaxy. As they stood together, the legacy of a lost civilization living on through their work, they were no longer just survivors of a galactic mishap. They were pioneers on the frontier of a new era, guardians of a profound secret that would shape the future of the galaxy.